Before going on with the QuickBooks setup, it's very important that we go to the web and grab the file needed to interface the two products together supplied by QuickBooks. So let's take the time to go to drdispatch.com. Once you get on the web page, which is what it looks like, the blue truck, so forth, scroll down. You'll see a video in the center. And there'll be two paragraphs below the video, 1, 2, and it'll say, current customers, check here for free upgrades. Click there and slide to the very bottom. And this is our upgrade page, but we also keep the QuickBooks integration SDK, SDK meaning Software Developers Kit. We keep that at the bottom. We want to download the bottom one. This is well beyond build 75. So we're going to click that and do a simple run or run on that. You could also save it to your desktop. QuickBooks probably should be closed for this operation. Let that go and run it, and obviously just go through the process of running this. I'm not going to go through the whole thing here and take the time. I'll start it, but just let it run. Next, next, next. And when it's done, it's done. Got to have that in place, or there is no way for Dr. Dispatch and QuickBooks to communicate. So get that done first. Very important. Then on we go. Good day. Welcome to Dr. Dispatch Tutorials once again. Today's video, we're going to go into the complete QuickBooks integration between Dr. Dispatch and QuickBooks and everything required to get it to work. I believe at this point, let's go ahead and go to System Setup, QuickBooks Setup tab. You want to make sure your check mark is in the automatic QuickBooks export box. That will be used later, but we need to get that in there. And from there we go to Setup Now, which will open our setup program. Now, this is a program we wrote to set up and connect with QuickBooks, test the communication and so forth. First thing you're going to do, and what we're going to do here today, is we're going to emulate trucking and brokerage both into one single account, which there again probably not recommended by most accountants, but it's easy for conversation and demoing this. You take your brokerage and you simply browse to the company file. I've found QuickBooks doesn't like to let you have a hold of that company file if it's open, so let's close the company file till we get it chosen here, and you'll browse. Now, depending on where your QuickBooks, which one you have, and a multitude of other things, it's hard to say where your QuickBooks company file is going to reside. Now mine, I happen to have in a folder here under Program Files, QuickBooks 2010. Wherever that is, that's going to be between you and your computer person, but you're going to need to find it and then highlight it. Come in here and highlight in this case we're using a sample company, would be your company file. Hit open and it'll put in the path. Do the same thing for trucking. Whether it's the same file or whether it's a whole different file, matters not. Browse to the trucking file and select it as well. And maybe you won't have both, either way works. Now, what QuickBooks are you using? In this case we're using 2010. A little hard to explain this, but the 2010 choice, I have seen some problems and errors, new software on their end, to be expected. The 2009 integration works just fine. So let's choose that and hit the next button. So once again we've selected our brokerage and or trucking company file location. This one doesn't look like to me. I mean, redo this one here. I'm thinking that's probably not the right one. It's this one. There we go. Hit the next button. Now at this point you're going to want QuickBooks open, and must have it open, and you need to have the proper company file open. Now I'm going to open the sample company that we're using, and if you want to know where your company file is, what I like to do is go to File, Open Previous, and QuickBooks will usually show you on the top line what file you've been opening and using. And in this case, this path is exactly the same path that we put into setup, and it's got to be the same path or it will not work. Can't be a H drive and one a C drive. It's got to be the same. If you're doing this over a network for a company file that resides on a server, you're best to browse. When you browse here, browse through and use the network and find the computer in the folder. Still going to end up with a path, but it has to be the same path that you open the QuickBooks with if you're going to have it open and use it. So once again, I've got it open. Larry's Landscaping in this case. And I'm going to go to the Manage Accounts. Trucking or Brokerage, be mindful if you're just using one. And for example, if you are using Brokerage and you come here on Trucking and try to refresh and don't have a proper company file, it won't work. This stuff's very touchy, all this. Everything's got to be perfect. So let's start with Trucking. Trucking, we have the Trucking company file open in QuickBooks. So at this point, we hit a refresh button. This will engage communications with QuickBooks for the first time, and you will get a window and a certificate that QuickBooks is warning you that a third-party piece of software is trying to access your company file. If this was something you weren't prepared for, this could be bad. And of course, you want to say yes and allow Dr. Dispatch. I like to do allow even if QuickBooks is not running. This way, if you have an employee or somebody maybe you don't want in your financial package, they can still do invoicing and dump it without opening QuickBooks. But either way, say yes whenever open or yes always, one of the two. Continue. We don't have a signed digital certificate, and most companies don't, and I probably never will. So hit yes, and it's once again going to go over the parameters of what we're doing. Hit done, and now we've communicated. That's all forevermore done. Now, to do trucking, we're going to put in an invoice automatically. Every time you invoice a load and send it to QuickBooks, we put in an invoice. We got to have line items. Now I have a choice of two. Let me show you what a line item is in QuickBooks. List, item list. I'll get this full screen. I happen to have one for brokerage freight and fuel surcharge. I need one to do trucking invoices and trucking fuel surcharge, so I'm going to add these. Now, this goes hand in hand with chart of accounts. If you're going to make a line item, and let me show you what a line item actually is for. A line item is when you create an invoice, you have to have something to sell. Brokerage freight, truck freight, it's kind of meaningless to us, but to the integration between Dr. Dispatch and QuickBooks, QuickBooks must have this. This leads to an income account. And there again, that's what a line item is. I'm going to go back to my line item list. I need to first look at my income accounts. I have one for truck freight, brokerage freight, and then I already made a fuel surcharge sub-account under brokerage freight. Now in this case, let me show you how to do a fuel surcharge. It's better to have a sub-account for fuel if you're going to break it out like this. I'm going to do a right-click anywhere and do a new income, continue, and I'm going to call this truck fuel surcharge. No reason not to be descriptive here. It makes everything real easy down the road. In this case, it's a sub-account of truck freight. Now, not everything's a sub-account, but it's so easy to put accounts in QuickBooks, piece of cake. So now we have truck freight, a sub-account of truck fuel. Brokerage freight was already in there, and brokerage fuel surcharge. Now, I need a line item for brokerage freight, and I need a line item for brokerage, or for trucking freight and trucking fuel surcharge. So I'm going to right-click and do a new line item. Always should be a service. And in this case, same as the account name, I'm going to abbreviate truck freight. And this is where you attach it to the income account, which is simple right here, or whatever your income account is for your truck freight. Remember, we're doing trucking and not brokerage at this point. That puts that in there easy as that. Now I finally need a fuel surcharge for trucking. So I'm going to do another right click and a new, call this truck fuel surcharge, and attach it to the proper account. Simple as that. So now we have a line item for each of the two types of freight, a line item for each of the fuel surcharges. Both lead to an income account. Simple, once you understand its meaning. Now, at this point, you should be ready to go. Now, you do also have to have terms for this integration to work. Terms usually are put in QuickBooks if you use the accountant interview wizard to set up your account. If you want to check it, most everything's under lists here. Customer vendor list, terms list. As long as you have items here, we have to have a terms to do this. Once again, recapping what's required for integration, you have to have Income accounts for your trucking and or your brokerage, whatever you're doing. Minimum of at least one income account. If you want to break down other fuel and unloading, that's fine. You must have at least one line item for your main freight, line haul, whatever you want to call it, that connects to your income account that we just discussed. Those are the two requirements. And finally, terms. You owe me in 15 days, I'll pay you payables in 30 days. Whatever the two terms are, you have to have those defined in your list. Now, let's go back to the Dr. Dispatch integration where we can actually do this. Now that we've added some new items here, I'm going to have to refresh again because, see, I have 4 line items now. I put 2 new ones in since I refreshed. So I'm going to do this again and reread everything. Really simple. Now I've got it back. Trucking line item. What line item am I going to use for Dr. Dispatch to put in an invoice? That would be truck freight. I'm not going to break out unloading. To me, it seems senseless. That doesn't mean some of y'all don't want to do it. That's fine. If you have a line item leading to an income account, use it. Fuel surcharge, in this case, I am going to break out. There again, do that. If you want to double check your work, Dr. Dispatch stores the line item here. The lookup list is from QuickBooks down below, so it should be there twice. Twice. There again, don't change it like I almost did. Drop it down once, twice. If you type something in here and it's not in QuickBooks, no way will it work. You got to select it from the lists. Okay, once we get those done, we can save changes and move on. I'm going to go ahead and do the brokerage now because we're here and we're using the same company file. There again, I go to the brokerage tab, hit refresh, do the same connection. It's going to blank those out and give me the results. I had an expense account for carrier pay. In other words, all checks that you write to your outside carriers for your brokerage. At the end of the year, you're going to want to know your gross income and the total of everything that's tax deductible that you didn't spend. Carrier pay is going to be one of your big ones if you're a broker. So you need a single expense account. Call it what you want to. You can spell to locate here, whatever the name may be. Put that in there. If you're going to do advances, you should put in your advance account. I don't have one defined here, but it's not your checking account. It would be an expense account. And if you're going to have advance charges, you can break those out to a separate account if you want to. Most people use the same account for both. If you have problems on this part, call us. So once again, we've got our expense account, where we're going to pay, where all the money will go after the carriers are paid. This is the account it will lay in. And you'll get your results there from the end of the year. Now, we also have the invoice, same as trucking, exact same thing. Line item that leads to an income account, but not truck freight. In this case, it's brokerage freight, as I have lined out behind us. Brokerage freight again, notice it's in the list twice, and the fuel surcharge. This one was already set up prior. So we have everything ready. Good time to always save changes as you go through this and you get your stuff going. The next tab is classes. Most people won't use classes. I'm not going to go too deep into it now. If you need to use classes, call us. You basically turn it on here. It has to be turned on in QuickBooks as well. And it gives you a list of names like truck numbers. If you want to break out income on trucks per unit, you don't put in an income account for each truck. You have one income account and put in a class like truck 100, truck 200, truck 300. And when you put a load together in Dr. Dispatch, it'll provide you a place to look up the class for each load. And you can break out flatbed reefer, see what does the better on the profit ratio, the unit numbers, or even drivers, company versus owner op. Anyway, it's not complicated, but if you want to get into this, give us a call. Finally, we go to terms. This is required. We want to read the terms from the brokerage. That's from QuickBooks. Step 2, move those over to Dr. Dispatch, updated. We're good. Do the same thing for trucking. The list is already populated. I'll read it again, but it won't change. There again, move them over. List updated. This is your default terms on your invoice. Like AP 30 on your invoice, you're going to show 15 to the customer on terms. It's not going to get you paid any quicker, but doesn't hurt to have a term specified. There again, save changes. We are done. This is ready to use now. Not much to this once you understand what we're doing. Let's go through this one more time in summary. Company file setup, whether you use brokerage and or trucking, one or the other. browse to the place on your hard drive where your company file is. This would also be a network location. If you're going to use multiple computers to dump the data to QuickBooks from Dr. Dispatch, you'll need a network path here, and that would start off like backslash QuickBooks, for example. Who knows? Could be anything. You'll need a computer person or somebody involved to help you if you're going to get that deep. Use the version of QuickBooks you have, but once again, word of warning, if you're using the 2010, stay with the 09 choice. It's way more stable. Works just fine. Choose your company file. Step 2, manage accounts. Maybe you're using trucking only. Maybe you're using brokerage only. Whichever one or both, go to the one you're going to use. Make sure QuickBooks has that company file open. Once again, you can check your path here. Where is my QuickBooks file? Here it is, the last one opened. Once you know that, you come over here. We come to say trucking. We do the refresh. It'll read or fill in these drop-down lists for us so we can choose from QuickBooks. Once again, we don't type in what we want it to be. That will not add that to QuickBooks. We must look up from QuickBooks what our choices are. And there again, I made the, if you remember, I made the new line items by right-clicking and just choosing new, give them a name, choose an income account. That's all it takes to put in a new line item. Doesn't matter what the name is. That's up to you. But you choose those. That's for your main line haul freight. This could be unloading broke out. In this case, I'm not breaking it out. I want it also to go into the truck income, and fuel surcharge is in its own account here. Brokerage, same thing. We got the 3 line items at the bottom for the invoice. And the only additional thing we really have is an expense account to pay the carriers or the vendors on the freight due to them. All this gets saved, like I say, as you go. Ignore classes unless you're using it. Terms, select each one. Make sure you have the right one. If you're just using one of these, read in the terms, move them to Dr. Dispatch. Now, another word of advice here. You do not have to put terms on customers or carriers in Dr. Dispatch. This does not have to be filled out. I believe it's under the financial. I'm sorry. Here. Well, that's amazing. Oh, sorry. It's under the billing address or billing is the terms list. You don't have to fill these out. I, in fact, say don't fill them out. It's going to use the default one in QuickBooks Setup. If you and another thing, if your people start typing things in here, that will cause an error. That will never dump to QuickBooks. If it's got to be in QuickBooks, so you got to pick it from the list. But once again, you don't need to do this because we have the default, which will go on every bill and every invoice automatically. Make sure this is saved. Hit the finish button to close it, and we're ready to go. We can take one real quick here and dump it. Let's see, we hopefully will have an address on this one. We'll take this one right here, load my truck and Kraft Foods. I'm going to process this thing out. And it's immediately going to, of course, I don't have any info here. Sorry about that, folks. Let me move over to one I know does. There we go, sorry. So we take 1001, we print the invoice, we end up getting an accounts receivable record and an accounts payable record. One of each to go to QuickBooks. That prior error I had a while ago really wasn't maybe such a bad thing. As you're getting started here and your people are putting in the data in Dispatch, and if they don't have bill to or pay to addresses shipped for the customer and carrier respectively, QuickBooks won't take it. We can't invoice it. You got to have addresses, city, states, and zips. At any rate, after that's processed, goes here, one record for each. Hit the button, say yes, you want to do it. It'll turn green as they go. I'll print that to the printer. The batch is printed correctly, cleared out, billing's done for the day. The stuff is in QuickBooks. The customer, which I believe was McDowell's, there he is. Got to change the date range on this sample company. There's the invoice we just sent over, put in robotically, 100%, everything's broke out, everything's ready to roll. And you won't need to do anything with this invoice, but it has to be in here for QuickBooks to pick this up on the accounts receivable. Once again, vendor or carrier, because this was a broker load. I'm looking for capital letters here. This company, Samples Company, has all kinds of pre-entered stuff in it, but I put everything in capital letters, and there it is there. The physical year set for this company is back in 07. That's why I have to change the date range to show this. On the carrier, here's the bill we entered robotically once again, the breakdown of what we owe him. Print this, piece of cake. Absolutely no interaction from the user, just a couple of button presses to get this done. And you'll have accounts receivables now to age and collect your money, and you'll have an accounts payable to age and pay your carriers properly. And in this day and time, if your money doesn't go out to the carriers on time, they're not going to come back for seconds. So it's a key to keeping your business alive. At any rate, that concludes the video on integrating Dr. Dispatch and QuickBooks. Once again, we did both into one company file, which isn't suggested, but it does work just fine. I have people that do that. Once you're done here, now one thing else, when you first check mark your QuickBooks setup here, you probably will have to close Dr. Dispatch and reopen it before you will see your QuickBooks buttons come to life, because it has to read those settings upon opening. Any questions, give us a call.